In light of the recent regional and geopolitical developments affecting the UAE, some real estate buyers are now reconsidering their property transactions. This is particularly relevant for buyers whose transactions are still in early stages. For example, the initial sale agreement has been signed, a deposit has been paid, and the parties are waiting for conditions to be fulfilled before closing. These conditions may include mortgage approval, issuance of an NOC from the developer, payment of service charges, and other administrative steps required to move forward. In some cases, buyers may have legitimate grounds to exit the contract. However, this largely depends on how the agreement is drafted and the specific circumstances of the buyer. For example, many property contracts are contingent on the buyer obtaining mortgage financing. If the buyer cannot secure the mortgage, the contract may allow the buyer to withdraw from the transaction without penalty. In the current environment, a buyer whose employment situation has become uncertain or whose income is now at risk may face mortgage rejection. In such cases, the failure to obtain financing may provide a legitimate exit from the contract, depending on the wording of the agreement. In other cases, the buyer may be purchasing without financing, but has experienced a sudden loss of income or significant business disruption due to current regional developments. In certain circumstances, this may qualify as force majeure. Generally speaking, force majeure refers to an unforeseeable and uncontrollable event that prevents a party from fulfilling contractual obligations. Common examples include war, armed conflict, government restrictions, or other extraordinary external events that make performance impossible or impractical. If force majeure applies, it may allow a party to suspend performance temporarily or, in certain cases, terminate the contract entirely. There may also be situations where a buyer cannot complete the transaction temporarily, for example, travel restrictions preventing attendance at transfer, or restrictions affecting access to funds or cash movement. In such cases, force majeure may justify delaying performance. However, force majeure typically applies only for as long as the extraordinary event continues. Some buyers may wish to exit because they believe property prices may decline or the investment no longer makes financial sense. This does not qualify as force majeure. While the buyer may still choose to exit the transaction, this may require paying a contractual penalty or forfeiting the deposit, depending on the terms of the agreement. So in conclusion, whether a buyer can exit a real estate transaction depends on the specific contract and the buyer's individual circumstances. If true force majeure or a legitimate contractual contingency exists, the buyer may be able to exit without penalty. In other cases, exiting may still be possible, but the buyer should be prepared to pay the contractual penalty for termination.